How's it going, everyone? This is Maximilian, and you're watching episode 5 of Street Fighter X Tekken, the Online Warrior. So Street Fighter X Tekken has been out for just about a month now, and man, what a month it has been. I don't think there's been so much drama and conversation and so many things happening around a single fighting game than Street Fighter X Tekken ever since like the first Street Fighter 4. A lot for the bad, a lot for the worst, and some for the good for the sake of a lot of players. But let's quickly talk about this in the topic of the discussion of today's episode. And it's that, is Street Fighter X Tekken the anti-hype game, or the game that everybody loves to hate? The other thing I'd like to discuss is that this game seems to be in a very interesting period right now where it's kind of being sent to its deathbed because of all this crazy stuff that's happening to it, and a lot of things as a result in the gameplay system that are really bugging a lot of players. So let's quickly talk about where this came from. Recently, about a week and a half ago, there was NorCal Regionals, one of the biggest majors in California for fighting games. And at this Regionals, there were a finals that took place for Street Fighter X Tekken, and it was pretty uneventful. Amongst the commentators, some of the players, and the crowd, Street Fighter X Tekken didn't exactly get the biggest fan reaction when it came to hype, and that's one of the biggest things fighting games hold behind it when it comes to live events. Now, a lot of people have shown some discretion as of the past few weeks. There's been a lot of things that have been bugging some people about this game. There's some stuff that still bugs me about it. Some of the glitches, the infinites, the way Capcom is handling the DLC scheduling, and all types of stuff like that. We want to see fixes for this stuff, and we want to see it fast. But the big problem is that as a result of all these things happening, there's another huge issue that's happening with the game right now, directly related to the gameplay system, and it's the problem of timeouts. Now, many commentators have gone on record and during matches saying that, oh no, there's 40 seconds left on the clock, or there's 50 seconds left on the clock, you're running out of time. And it's actually kind of true. A lot of people are focusing their game plans and their gameplay around using the time to their advantage, and you can hardly blame them. When it comes to competitive fighting games and being in a competitive scene, winning is winning, and you take what you can get and whatever the game offers for you, and you use it to your advantage to win a game. For a lot of the casual players, they see this as, you know, it's commented as being like, you know, noobish. You know, people complain that there's spammers in Marvel vs. Capcom games. People complain about Shotos throwing fireballs from full screen, but when it comes to competitive aspects, there's a much different mentality, and it doesn't matter what it took to get to that position, even though it might upset a large demographic of players. The people look for the wins, and they're looking for that victory. So I can respect both sides. I can especially respect for the person getting the win, but I can also understand, like, from a perspective of like an outsider that comes in and seeing like all these matches ending as a result of timeouts. It can be a big problem, but I do also agree that the time seems to be an issue for Street Fighter X Tekken. I think that the overall time limit of the game needs to probably be increased by 1/3, because once there's 30 seconds left on the clock, it's really shocking how fast that goes by, considering the length of certain attacks, the length of combos, the length of animations, and the length of super arts. And you have to consider how long that stuff actually is, and it really goes into the overall effect of the time frame and how much of the clock it eats. It's crazy, man. I haven't really run into a fighting game like this ever since, like, I'd say, you know, Virtua Fighter has a really short clock, but those matches end pretty fast, and you don't see too many timeouts. At least when I was watching Virtua Fighter, that was the case. So the clock is a problem right now. When I personally play, I mean, I actually would like to do this, like, for the sake of later Online Warrior episodes and online ranked game analysis for Street Fighter X Tekken. The focus of my team is to do damage and to get in there as fast as possible using Ken and Kazuya. The whole point of it is that I have a good method of distributing damage between the characters, and a lot of other people do too, but there's a lot of teams that can actually get away with running away for the majority of the time and doing damage, doing small damage, and then taking that to their advantage, and you're just pretty much playing a runaway game throughout the rest of the match. But when it comes to how they're going to address this in the future, I really hope the time is taken into consideration. It's one of the things that's bugging the majority of players right now, and it's causing this thing called anti-hype for Street Fighter X Tekken, where people just aren't excited about the game. So this leads into the next big portion of news, since NorCal Regionals was kind of a, the Street Fighter X Tekken side of the event wasn't very exciting. Even though I like seeing the higher level play, I think the way people are playing the game still is a little, probably not the most optimized, but it's definitely not as exciting as other games like Marvel and even games like Street Fighter 4. But I think the easy way to fix this isn't essentially to start like adjusting things right off the bat. I think the time probably does have a big factor to do with it, but a lot of people are just getting like not excited about the game in general, and I think the game just needs more cooking time in the oven. I think that a month out, you barely know anything about a fighting game at this point, so we'll see what happens. I'm going to give that one, I hope it gets better at this point, because personally I like Street Fighter X Tekken. And I'll give my reasons why at the end of this video, but let's cover the next topic. After Street Fighter X Tekken concluded at NCR, there was a pretty big announcement from the folks that run EVO, which is the Cannons, Mr. Wizard, and several other guys that run the entire event, made the big announcement that Street Fighter X Tekken is not going to be a 1-versus-1 tournament at the Evolution Fighting Game Worldwide, essentially a championship for all fighting games. It's going to be 2v2. So what this means is that you're going to have 2 players, each controlling each character on one team, and 2 players versus the other team. This is kind of exciting because for the most part, when there's been streamed events, and the one that I went to for the Cross Counter Invitational, 2 versus 2 can be pretty exciting. And I had not played hardly any of it up until leading until that day, but especially from a player's perspective, you feel a lot of like, it's pretty crazy the amount of like personal hype that's going on when you're carrying a teammate or a teammate is carrying you and you're working off of each other. It's pretty interesting to see the personal team dynamics as well as the stuff that happens in game. So 2v2 is pretty popular, all things considered, for Street Fighter X Tekken, and a lot of people are getting behind it. And I'm actually not too surprised. I was pretty sure that the biggest components of this game upon its release were going to be the multiplayer aspects, and I think that was pretty important for Street Fighter X Tekken to be enjoyed by the fans, and it looks like that's going to be the case because that's how EVO is going to be conducted this year. So I'm pretty excited for Evolution. I would have still personally liked there to be a singles version, because I just would have liked to have entered and not have to worry about, like, you know, bringing somebody else down because I don't get the most time to practice. I would have just liked to join myself, and I think a lot of other people would have been in the same boat. But for the sake of, you know, EVO is a tournament that takes place over just a like 3-day span of a weekend and an extra Friday, so there's no way they're going to be able to hold that many more tournaments. But regardless, I think 2v2 is going to be fun. I think it's going to be a blast to watch in the finals, and that might be the resurrection of the hype that Street Fighter X Tekken needs. And so here's my final thoughts on this whole scenario where Street Fighter X Tekken has kind of gone from everybody's loving this game and now everybody hates this game all of a sudden. It seems that way, at least. Personally, from my perspective, I actually really like Street Fighter X Tekken even as a single-player experience. Not a single-player experience or a single-player game, not like 2v2. I think those modes offer a ton, but just from my personal experience, Street Fighter X Tekken brings some stuff back to fighting games that I really enjoyed from previous fighting games. More notably, Capcom vs. SNK 2. I wasn't the most profound CVS2 player or any like specific fighting game player by any means, but CVS2 was an absolute blast of a fighting game. For you guys that don't know, CVS2 offered a multitude of different grooves. These grooves resembled fighting game systems from previous Capcom and SNK fighting games, and it was really fun. It was really diverse. If you had 3 characters on your team that were in any specific groove, the other groove version could be completely different as far as how you play the game. So there was a lot of variety in CVS2. And it feels the same way in Street Fighter X Tekken to me, like the overall gameplay system and mechanics. Like there's a lot going on, there's a lot of system mechanics, but there's almost too much at the same time. But I really like it. It feels like you can almost discover new things like randomly using, like, you know, special charge cancels and all the other crazy stuff, even though we have hardly seen anything from Pandora yet, and you better believe there's something going on there, just people have not really shown it off or discovered it yet. There's also other things that remind me a lot of older Street Fighter games, and that's specifically the increased amount of block stun. But this has caused some problems, which has pretty much made the standing jab for a lot of characters really effective. For you guys that don't know, standing jabs in Street Fighter X Tekken are powerful because they are plus frames on block, which means if I break that down into simpler terms, they're very advantageous if you are attacking an enemy and they're blocking. It puts you in a state of good position, and you can actually continue the attack repeatedly. It's not like an infinite or anything, or like an infinite block string. It's just very good, and it's pressure that just takes time off of the clock, which ends up with the clock being an issue again. But I really like more block stun back in fighting games. It was something that was lost when Street Fighter 4 came out, and this is where, like, mashing Dragon Punch through block strings became really profound. It was like Street Fighter 4. I don't personally remember that happening, like, all the time in previous fighting games, but it's kind of back now, and if you have really solid block strings, just like in CVS2, just like in Super Turbo, even older Street Fighter games, block stun was heavy, and you kind of had to deal with it. You have to understand that they're at plus advantage, like, they're at advantage when they're doing this block string. I just have to block for the remainder. And even myself, when I played Street Fighter 4 for the longest time, man, it's hard to break that habit now. And I almost kind of want to go back in Third Strike, you know, just to stop it, you know, just to play that game and get that out of my mindset that you can't interrupt this block string. Just deal with it. Your opponent is on the offensive. You have to kind of understand that that's how the game works, and it's how a lot of the older games work too. So that's what I mean when I talk about how Street Fighter X Tekken is incorporating things from previous fighting games that I really enjoyed. And I kind of feel that when I play the game. I kind of feel like I just get it when I'm playing Street Fighter X Tekken, how they nerfed a little bit of the throw ranges, even though throws are still really effective and damaging. All these little things. So even though the community, or a lot of people, it seems right now, have problems with Street Fighter X Tekken, there's these little things that bring me back, and while those problems kind of like pester up and creep on me during some rounds every once in a while when I'm playing the game, it is annoying, but every once in a while I'll get those few games where I'm able to take advantage of these elements that remind me of old fighting games, and you have like a really good match, and it seems awesome. Like, I really enjoy some of the fights I have in Street Fighter X Tekken as a result of it, and a lot of the crazy randomness factor is completely gone. Especially because, I forgot to mention this might be a big reason why the game is so anti-hype, is there's no comeback mechanic in this game. And one of the most hyped games out there that has one of the most ridiculous comeback mechanics is, of course, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 with X Factor. And that was the design mechanic behind that gameplay system. Like, the designers that actually made Marvel told me in an interview that that stuff was put into the game specifically so you can have these crazy hype moments where people get all insane, and that it's exactly what it does. It's exciting. It's exciting to see a comeback regardless if it's X-Factored or not. It's engaging, and it brings the crowd up to their feet. And the same thing for Street Fighter 4 to an extent. Even though Street Fighter 4's is a little bit more subdued, you see it in Ultra combos because you only get Ultras via taking damage or soaking damage from focus attacks. And that's a comeback mechanic. In previous Street Fighter games, you did not get things for getting beat up, and you did not get things just for the sake of, like, bringing back a win into your favor. And Street Fighter X Tekken doesn't have those. It just has basic fighting fundamentals, and Pandora, as of right now, isn't exactly a comeback mechanic unless something is crazy and is discovered over the next few months. But it's in the game. You activate it once you're at 25% health, so it can technically be considered as a comeback feature. But like I said, we haven't seen anything for it as of yet. So right now, Street Fighter X Tekken is a game without a comeback mechanic, and I really like that. I kind of like the feeling that I've gone through an entire 2 rounds, and all of a sudden I've performed very well, and there's nothing the enemy or the opponent can do to come back at this point, unless I just make several bad decisions. And even if those bad decisions are made and I end up losing these rounds, I don't find myself getting really upset. Like, I get pretty bugged when Street Fighter 4 stuff happens and I get hit by, like, you know, an ultra combo that I know got to the that I know the opponent received as a result of me beating the hell out of them, or X Factor, for the sake of which they have a comeback mechanic, even though I have one as well. It's these things that I feel like I'm more in control. I think I said this before with Street Fighter X Tekken, so I don't know, maybe it's just me. If for you guys that are like veterans that played some of the older Capcom fighting games, like before Street Fighter 4, like the Third Strike, CVS2s, even before that, like Hyper Fighting and Super Turbo, leave a comment below if you have that experience. But I'd also like to know from you guys that have the Street Fighter 4 experience, like the new generation of fighting game experience, what does Street Fighter X Tekken mean to you? And are these things that are happening to the game enough to like crutch it in your opinion, and you just don't enjoy it at all, and you prefer to stay to Street Fighter 4? Or do you actually enjoy the new system mechanics? Because I'm definitely in the latter, and I have a lot of fun when I'm playing this game. And even though that's not considering a competitive aspect where the timeouts are a problem, I enjoy it. Even though it's on a casual play the game type of level, I really enjoy it, and it gives me a lot of fun in my free time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Consider those questions I left for you, and please leave a comment below if you could, and I'd also like to recap some of the results in a later episode. But if you guys are looking for more Street Fighter X Tekken ranked game madness outside of the Online Warrior episodes, I'll be frequently putting up ranked matches from this game and others every single week. So for example, daily I'm going to compose several ranked games from Street Fighter X Tekken and provide some live commentary. There's going to be about 3 or 4 matches, but what it's going to be is the week of Street Fighter X Tekken, and you guys are going to have daily videos that are going to be ranked games, pretty much just ranked games with commentary. Next week I'll focus on another game, most likely Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but you can still expect that you'll get Online Warrior episodes for each one of these games during each week, as well as the daily ranked episodes that don't take as long for me to produce and make content for, essentially just giving you more stuff to watch throughout the week while waiting for the next episode. So if you guys do want to see more of those ranked games, please leave a comment below, and I'll be expanding that to future fighting games like Soul Calibur 5, even Third Strike, and maybe even HD Remix. Who knows? There's plenty of other games outside of fighting games as well that I'd like to spread this week of playing a game to. But until then, thank you all very much for watching the video. This has been Maximilian, and I'll see you next time.